Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome, everybody, once again to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky. With me, as always, is the maestro of mail order mysteries and owner of houseoftheunusual.com, the one, the only, Eddie Guevara. Today's returning guest is your favorite and my favorite, the amazing horror magician. He is humbly known as Chuck Caputo. Chuck,
Hey,
what's up, brother?
hey, how's it going, Joe and Eddie? Yeah, it's good to be here, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us again for another chat. So what's new over in the Western Pennsylvania area?
You know what? Keeping pretty busy. Doing the magic shows. I just did a lecture last week as well for like a local group of magicians, and I've been building a lot of stuff, Joe. You know what? Like in my spare time, I have a little workshop. It's nothing fancy. It's just an average shop with a drill press, a sander and a few things. But I like to tinker. I'm always building something. So yeah. So keep it pretty busy.
Nice. And yeah, we talked the last podcast about that magician's conference or speaking engagement you're going to have. So is there anything that you could tell us about that or how that went?
I tell you what, it was a lot of fun. It was out in Beaver, PA, and my wife had booked a bed and breakfast. So we pulled into the bed and breakfast probably around 2 in the afternoon, and we basically just brought our clothes up to hang it up in the closet, for later on that evening. And then we hung around the grounds and we just walked around. They have horses and it's really relaxing, very nice. And then we went to the venue about 5 o'clock. We got there about 5:30, so I set everything up. And the magicians started coming in around 7:30 p.m. So it worked out really well. I mean, they were a nice group of people. I sold some stuff that I built as well, and yeah, it worked out very well. I brought a lot of antique magic and things that are strange. Like strange type of. Uh, I'm trying to put this into the proper wording. I like some of the older ideas of magic, from books that were very old, like the
Right.
classics. Some of the old ideas are so old that they're actually new. Very few people have seen some of these principles.
Now, what were the demographics like at the conference? Was it mostly male or female, younger or older?
Well, you know what? I think it was mixed. I mean, there was half male, half female. Probably the age would be maybe late 30s up to about 70, somewhere around that area.
Okay. Do you, I don't know, was this a 18 and over, or do you get any like real like younger, teenagers that are interested that would have been there?
You know what? That particular night, I don't think anybody was under probably 35, but every once
Okay.
in a while, yeah. I mean, sometimes when I do pop into a meeting or even the one in Pittsburgh, there is some younger kids, which is, really cool to see because, these kids are our future. I mean, so they get some young boys and girls that come in and they seem interested in magic, like their parents will drop them off and so forth, so that's something that that I actually like to see because, like I said, these kids are our future.
Yeah, that's yeah, we always like to see, younger generations
Absolutely.
get involved, especially, on my end with the classic sci-fi, that it always seems like, the people that are interested in it are dying off, quickly, and there's not many to replace it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? Like I've always been interested in the history of magic, so that's something that, I wish more people would get into that. Read some of the older books, the Tarbell books. There's like, I believe, eight volumes of Tarbell, Greater Magic, things of that nature that were written, probably like over 100 years ago. I mean,
Right.
they're actually, reprinted throughout the years. But I tell you what, it's a whole conglomeracy of some great ideas. And like I said, the principles are not even used nowadays because like I'll actually get things from these books and I'll perform it for these local groups. And then, there's some people come up to me and ask, where did you get that idea? You know what? It's been in Tarbell since like 1920. You know what? All you have to do is read,
It's so old, it's new.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
There's an old saying in way back in the day from a show Something old, something new, but I can't finish the saying.
Well, speaking of that, Eddie, what's new over at the House of the Unusual headquarters?
I'll tell you what, man. It's everything's going as planned. I've been talking to the company that we spoke about, and if people are listening out there, House of the Unusual might be signing up as consultants to a company that does what they call NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. It's kind of the crypto world where you create digital products and you sell digital products. The difference that this company is that this company is actually offering digital products, but every digital product they sell, there's a tangible product to go with it. So this is pretty good, I guess, in the world of collectors, and I'll tell you why. Because the way this company actually works is when they create the digital product, they sell the digital. So in other words, it's like selling a deed to a product you own. So say, for example, we have a rare, I'll take an example, the Polaris nuclear submarine. You make that into a digital file. They sell the digital file. It could be interchanging hands, and each time it interchanges hands, of course, there's also a fee that you get for every time it changes hands. And when the person wants to trade it in for the actual tangible product, what happens then is that they will destroy the digital product, which is the NFT, which is non-fungible tokens, which means it's non-reproductible. You can't have two of them. What's really good about this is that I think the House of the Unusual can reach a lot of older collectors who don't want to get rid of their collection, but at the same time they're old and they know they're going to be passing away, and somebody's going to take the collection and destroy it. So one of the ways this would be good is if you would have a person do digital, create digital products of their collection, their most treasured pieces, and it would be sold. So the person gets the money there and then. And of course, it's kind of holding like a consignment store where you hold the product on consignment, and then when you sell it, you get. But the thing here is collectors will be getting paid, and the products they still hold on to it. Of course, it's going to be insured. In case anything does happen to the product, there has to be insurance to cover the cost. But most collectors will be able to hold on to their collection. Now, this is something that is it's new, something I'm really looking into. Joe, as we have discussed it, and Chuck, you guys, we've talked about it, and I'm learning a lot of it each and every day. But other than that, I also wanted to bring to your attention, I don't know if you guys have seen Fox News in the last week or so. On Ted Carson, there was a special where he came out to say that the United States Navy came forth and said they actually had caught a UFO that was flying up and hovering in speeds that, we don't have technology for, not even Russia, China, or the United States. And then it launched itself right into the ocean. And they couldn't find any traces of the product in the ocean. Or so that, I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
seen that
I
last week.
did. I did.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was cool. Wow.
Yeah, I actually was listening to a podcast earlier, and they had on a guest about it. And I guess the Navy even sent out a
Mm-hmm.
submarine
Yeah, they did.
to look at, to try to find any wreck. They thought it might have wrecked or something, and the sub went down there and they found nothing. And I tell you what was funny is I heard I can't remember, it was another podcast. I listen to a lot of different ones, and the guy was saying, well, yeah, a lot of people think that it's Russia or China, but the Chinese can't even get a rocket to not blow up in our our atmosphere. So they're they might not have this technology, but the way he put it, I thought it was pretty funny, and it kind of because I always look at a lot of the stuff as either ours from a secret space program or from another country, but they could be using that as putting out false information and so that to cover their actual their secret space program, kind of how we do with using NASA to cover ours.
Right.
Well, you see that one of the things that just kind of blew my mind here is I didn't know that there were other podcasts other than the House of the Unusual. And I'm kind of shocked you've been listening to other
Uh,
podcasts and not ours. What's going on?
I only listen to ours first because it's the best, the number one out there, the number one in podcast. So yeah, that was there's been a lot of UFO stuff going on. And like I said, the different podcasts I listen to usually have to do with like UFOs, conspiracies and all that, but they've just been inundated with these UFO cases coming from the military. And there was even I can't remember, I think it was maybe 60 Minutes or something had a former he was some type of, I think he worked for the National Security Agency. He was head of it or something years ago, and he even came out and said that, he doesn't know why that these things are being, hidden from the public and why the government's not more forthcoming with them. So there's just been a lot of chatter about it.
One of the things I really find interesting, though, is, when Ted Carson puts it on, I give it a more of a truth type to it. But here's the thing I don't understand, though. With the Navy and everything having so much advanced technology and having space, satellite that can read a postage stamp from space, you mean to say when this was happening, they couldn't have gotten better pictures than the blurred black and white, radar?
Well, you got to remember that's just what they're putting out to us. There's dealing with I was in the military for 9 years and overseas and all that, and what they used to put out to the public compared to what we would be doing on the ground is usually just a tip of the iceberg, or kind of like not really lies but not really truths. So I'm sure with everything that we have that they probably have so much more information on this, but they're only giving us little breadcrumbs here and there just to quench our thirst for it or keep us hungry for more, whatever their game plan is now. I mean, who knows?
I'm surprised that they're actually coming out with this now after so many years, because it happened back in 2019. It's not a new event.
Right.
But the thing, like I said, is it's always blurry. You see like a black, it's something that I would see us maybe in the 1970s, early 1970s, the type of technology we had back then.
Well, that they also could be what I was thinking when looking at that footage is that they could have, the technology that they have, they probably have crystal clear footage of it, but before they released it, they probably fuzzied it up a little bit, but just gave it just enough so that we could see it, but not enough to really make out any kind of, details on the craft or anything. They're good for doing that as well. I mean, it's like a game to them,
Yeah, obviously. I saw that because I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's like all these people that go out to the woods to film Bigfoot, on their brand new iPhone, and they have this video that looks like, the early 70s, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you know what's so funny? I forget where it was. They had a show. I think it was the History. I don't. You know what? The Travel Channel, and it's I forgot what part of the United States they call it Bigfoot country. But anyway, the whole thing is like, oh yeah, the Bigfoots, they killed off a couple of humans, and then this this lady's coming on saying that and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like really, like, you know what? Years ago, the History Channel did something that was really bizarre. They had a special on mermaids.
Oh, I remember that. Yep, I remember.
Yeah, and they did it so well that I actually fell for the darn thing. And then it was a joke. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, that was, I think, Discovery. Yeah, well, that was Discovery Channel, wasn't it?
No, I think it was the History because they got in trouble for it afterwards.
Yeah, one of them, because then they made it look like they had that home video of this mermaid washed up, and then you watch the credits and it says, special effects by so and so, all this. Yeah, and they got in trouble.
They got in trouble.
Yeah, presenting it as something real.
They aired it as being real, And
oh yeah. Hey, I hope you guys can still hear me okay. For some reason my internet went out. I had to come back on. You probably didn't even notice, but I was out for about 4 minutes.
Oh no, we didn't even know.
Chuck.
We thought you were Chuck. We thought you were just so into our conversation that
yeah.
you were remaining silent and
Well,
You know what?
our voices.
You know what? For some reason, the lights are flickering here. So if I disappear, no pun intended.
well,
That's what happens.
the problem is though, Chuck, is that for some reason, being a magician, you're pulling in a disappearing effect where people cannot actually see you.
I'm
So,
telling you. Wow.
wow, that was a good one.
Yeah, but I don't know what the heck is going on with with these UFOs, man. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, they're supposed to have some kind of 350-page report coming out within the next week or so. I don't know what's going on. Like you
Yeah,
said, if
I have a feeling it's going to be very whitewashed and
it's
very
going to be, yeah.
basic. I doubt it's going to be anything spectacular. I mean, it's the government that you got to take it for what it is.
Well, this is what you'll read in the report. The cover of the report will be, and now the United States, and then you have two black lines, 1/4 and two black lines.
Yeah, yeah. You could have, the first letter of the thing or first word, then everything blacked out, and then at the end, it will say the end.
That's kind of like if somebody robs the store, you got a picture of the person. And then when they show the picture to the police, you cover the headshot.
Yeah.
Here's the body. Try to decipher who it is,
Yeah, but it is interesting. I was looking the other day at some of my older pulps. Like I have a lot of like the sci-fi ones, and all the covers are of these spaceships and aliens, and the pulps from the 30s and 40s.
They're the best. The best.
Yeah, and I could just imagine just being could you imagine just taking a kid from that era who grew up on the pulps and bringing them into this era, and just telling them, hey, they're going to disclose that, these aliens are real. What would their perception be that there are these killer aliens? Because, we have a totally different perception nowadays about aliens than they did in the 30s and 40s.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you think about it, everything was they were invading us, they were coming to kill us or enslave us or take our women, whatever. Nowadays, we have a totally different thing where people, okay, you're getting abducted or they're getting instant downloads or some type of telepathy or whatever else. So, it would be interesting to pull one of them out from the past and put them in the future here with us and say, hey, look, this is what we look at it. It would honestly be completely different.
Absolutely. I got to tell you something, and this is what I learned from being there one time. I must have been 18, 19. My first job when I got married, there was an incident that happened. There was actually, I forget exactly what it was, but I think it was like a murder in the building where I used to work in, and the paper was there. I mean, no kidding. The next day, the story was so different from what actually happened. It's the same thing when you see all this stuff, and they see like right now, Ted Carson comes on and says, a flying saucer. Before you know it, you're gonna have 10 conspiracy theories based on that one single episode. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you're gonna have, and then for example, how many years have they been saying? And I think we mentioned this in one of the original podcasts we had, that we have some type of plane called the Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm correct, if that's the right name, that looks like a black triangle.
Or that the TR-3B is the black triangle.
Okay, now it has a name and a number. I think it was called.
There might be an Aurora plane. Yeah, there is an Aurora plane. It's almost looks like it's more of a triangular version of a stealth bomber.
Right.
How the stealth has the V-shaped back. This one it's almost like a triangle, but still has the cockpit egg shape on the top.
That is correct. Well, here's my question to you. Okay, now you mean to say, okay, the Navy right now said, okay, yeah, this footage. Which the first thing you would ask yourself is, who the heck got the footage?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did the Navy even release the footage? So they say, yeah, it's real, isn't that? But the truth is, we don't really know if they're just playing with a drone or something that they're doing, and the drone can do. Of course, if it's a radio-controlled drone from far away, it can do things like that,
Sure.
Now let me tell you this, because I confirmed this with my buddy. Now he good friend of mine. He's in his late 70s, early 80s. and he's a huge serial cliffhanger fan like I am, and I usually meet up with him once a week for coffee and to watch some old serials. So when they had the picture of the UFO that came out that everyone said, oh, it's a weather balloon or blimp or something, it looks silver and like egg shaped almost. Well, I noticed it had fins on the back, and if you look at that and you compare it to the rocket ships from Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon serials, it looks like the exact rocket ship from them. I mean, it is uncanny. I even showed it to him, and he agreed with me too.
Wow.
I said, maybe these people, these serial writers back in the 30s and 40s, they were onto something, man. They had some secret government knowledge, and
or the government's pulling our wool over the eyes, and and they're releasing all this new footage, hoping, and then they're using, because one thing I'm going to tell you guys, man, and this is an exact thing. When you see, Joe, specifically when you deal with flying saucers and stuff like that, usually in my lifetime, and I'm sure Chuck remembers this, every time the government puts out a new plane or something, they try to deviate the people by giving them some false UFO thing so that they look at something else. And then they use this plane.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that's what they did with the stealth bomber.
That's what they did with it.
Spread the word of UFOs for many years.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, we have the stealth bomber.
Yeah.
So,
what they also do too is that they gauge the public's reaction to,
exactly,
like, when they're putting out this stuff, they want to see how they're watching social media and everything to see how the public reacts, because if the public reacts, all crazy, like they're not going to release it. But if they see that we're being adults about it, maybe curious about it, they might be apt to release a little bit more. At least that's what I'm hoping they're thinking, because there's no doubt they're checking out, how the public's reacting to all this stuff.
Absolutely. Wasn't there a case, Joe, back in the 50s, maybe 1954, where there was some type of a UFO over top the White House? I mean, they had sent scramblers up there and they couldn't get near it. I think there maybe like 1954, 1955, I guess, when Eisenhower was president or something. There was, it was seen by, I couldn't tell you how many people. So that's the thing that makes me curious.
Yeah, that was in 1954. There's a flying, or 1952. I'm sorry. There's a flying saucer that went over it, and it was chased by a military plane.
Well, wait a second, guys. Wait a second. That sounds a little bit like This Island Earth. Or
it could be, or
the day the Earth stood still.
Yeah,
because you guys know that's exactly what is portrayed in one of those movies.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's Earth versus the flying saucer, or This Island Earth, where there's a flying saucer over the White House.
Right.
And I'm saying that's
well, that over where a lot of those started was during that time in 1952 in July. It was called the Big Flap, over Washington D.C., which was a huge UFO flap. Which, if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's a period in time when there's a lot of UFO sightings.
Yeah.
During that July of 52, there was a ton of UFO sightings in Washington D.C. And like Eddie was bringing up about the movies, I think that really, influenced a lot of sci-fi movie makers, because you had the atomic age that just hit a few years prior to that. You have the Red Scare with Russia going on, and now you're having these. You had Roswell a few years before. Now you're having UFOs over, arguably one of the most, I guess, important places in the United States. Of course, if I was a filmmaker, I'd be taking full advantage of it. What could I do to, what kind of movie could I make to put atomic bombs, aliens, UFOs over the White House, whatever.
Well, let me tell you something, Joe, and this is a fact because you work for MUFON. I don't know, Chuck, you're aware. I don't know if you're aware that Joe was an investigator.
Yeah. You know what? We actually talked about that, man. That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and one thing, I believe he was also back in 1969. He was part of the investigators for Project Blue Book. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, but I don't like to talk about my past that long.
That was in another time, another world, But anyway,
not saying I'm a time traveler or anything.
I'm
not a time traveler. I'm not saying I am, but I'm not saying that I'm not.
Well, the whole thing. Here's the whole thing with this. Okay, all those UFOs and stuff. If you look at it, and Joe, the reason I told you about your MUFON involvement is because you would be able to collaborate with what I'm about to say. You know, no matter what, every picture that we have of flying saucer from the 1950s and 60s, about 85 to 90% of them were created by a hoax. Like,
Sure.
for example, there's one famous thing that you see some people overlooking, like the shore, and they're looking like, like towards like the ocean. And there's a flying saucer on top. And what they're actually looking at is like some planes flying and somebody stuck a flying saucer above it in double exposure. And
Right.
they, then there's another one that they took one of those beach hats that the women wear
Mm-hmm.
and they tossed it up in the air and somebody photographed it.
Yeah, there's
Quite a few
ton out there.
that are fake,
Oh, absolutely.
And nowadays, like when I investigated for 3 years, I don't believe that I ran across anything that would be considered a hoax photo or video. But what I did run across was probably 98 to 99% of the time, or maybe 95 to 98% of the time, was photos, and it would be of the moon, a star, a glare through the windshield, an airplane at night, or helicopter at night. That was a majority of them, and those are if you know the right websites to go to, you could find out what was flying where at what time and what location, and where the stars, planets, anything in space. You could find out where that's at any specific time or date. So that's easy to find out. But there would be a ton of them, and then when you would talk to these people, and they're so they're always, most of them are very nice and they're very genuine, and they honestly they want to believe so much, but they don't stop to just say, hey, let's try to rule these things out. But then the hardest part was telling them, hey, you're seeing the moon behind the clouds, and then you would have to deal with a lot of them that would get angry, aggravated, because you're telling them it's not a UFO, and they want to believe so bad.
Sure, they do.
For probably 20, 30, 40 years to see a UFO, and they think that they've seen it. They've turned it into MUFON. It's getting investigated. They have this, photo or video of a UFO, and then you have to tell them it's the moon or it's the planet.
Well, yeah, you tell them it's the moon or the planet, but what happens then when they tell you, what about the guy that was sitting in my living room in the green outfit?
I've actually had some of those, and I think 100%, and I only had maybe about 3 or 4 of those where it was some really off the wall stuff, and they were in talking to them, they either had some type of mental illness, or at the time they were under the influence of alcohol or drugs.
Wow.
I never had a case where somebody had, an alien or demon or something in their house or close to them that didn't fall into one of those categories. Not to say that those don't happen, but in the 3 years that I did it, I didn't run across any of those.
Let me tell you, and I know both you and Chuck agree on this. How many times it happens, so you see how the brain basically works. How many times are you sitting in your living room, minding your own business, whatever, and all of a sudden you hear your wife or whatever family member say, hey, Joe, or you're like, what? Hello? Yeah. And there's nobody there, right? Or you'll turn around real quick and you can swear you saw somebody pass in front of you. And then, okay, so we know our brain, depending, I mean, you can do this. You go to sleep at night, and based on some stupid, crazy thing you've seen 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah, it'll pop in your mind. Yeah.
It pops in your mind. And then all of a sudden you're in this vivid dream that you swear you're awake, and you're going down. Like, there was one time, I'll never forget this, how stupid it was. I'm going down. I had watched the Woody Woodpecker cartoon with my oldest daughter. I think she was very young. And you know how there was the one guy, the police guy, kept falling off Niagara Falls, and he would go, hey, he'd go back up there to fight, and he kept falling off Niagara Falls. Well, whatever. I dreamt that I was in a barrel, rowing up the Hudson River. You know what I'm saying? And this thing was so vivid that I could have sworn I was like awake during it. You wake up and you go, "Are you kidding me? How stupid is that?" You know.
Isn't that something?
Well, Chuck, you could probably attest to this. Being a magician, and if we had Michael Mesner on, because he deals a lot more too with with the mind. The mind's a powerful thing, and it can
It's very powerful.
I guess play tricks on you. You could want to
Absolutely.
you could want to believe in something so much that you almost start manifesting it in your thoughts, and you start seeing it.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I think that's called matrix. Like when you matrix something, I think it's called matrixing. Where you want to see what you want. Let me ask you something, Joe. Did you ever have a close personal friend of yours? I mean, not somebody that you just went out to like do like an interview. Did you actually have a friend of yours that swore that they saw a UFO or something out of the ordinary, or is it just strangers that you just went out to talk to? You know what I mean? Did you actually? Did you actually, have a close personal friend that would swear to it that they saw something?
What I talked to a few people in the city, because I just with my job and all that, I'm always around people, and there have been people I've worked with and people that I've talked to within the city, and
Mm-hmm.
just even outside the city, sitting at the cigar lounge or something, and they've had sightings of UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say they've seen a flying saucer from another planet.
From another planet,
It's
sure.
a UFO. It is, it's an unidentified flying object. So that could be
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anything from an airplane. You don't know what it is. It's unidentified.
It could be anything, yeah.
Right,
Because
but there has been people that have seen black triangles or
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
weird lights in the sky. Actually, one day when I was working, myself and two other coworkers, we had a sighting which I sent into MUFON, where we seen it was like 5 or 6 almost like dull lime green lights in the sky moving in like a
Mm-hmm.
V formation, nothing blinking, and they were moving with V formation. Typically, that's a military type formation.
Right.
Um, but it was weird the way they were moving. It was a large V, and then there was one other light that was trailing far behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was coming from the direction of a local air base, which was about 45 minutes away. So
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like it was coming from that direction, and all three of us that seen it were all prior military, and the one guy is currently still in the reserves.
Mm-hmm.
And we all agreed that we've never seen any type of military or civilian craft with a dull lime
Mm-hmm.
green light and no flashing lights.
Right.
But like I said, that doesn't mean that it's not out there.
Right.
We weren't able to identifying it. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
they were moving in a V formation with one in the back. They could have been some kind of military maneuvers. They could have
Sure.
been doing some type of blacked out at night with some kind of different camera systems on, or just the green light so they could see each other. Whatever.
It
I'm
could
not
have been
saying it
anything.
was aliens from
Right.
planet Venus invading us, but it's still a UFO. It's unidentified.
Absolutely. I tell you what, the reason why I bring this up, there is one person that I know that is exceptionally honest. This one individual I know doesn't stretch anything. They don't drink, they don't do any drugs, and I guess back in 1974, maybe 1975, this person, who was a very good friend of mine, this person claimed, which I know they're telling the truth, because, like I said, they do not stretch things at all. This individual said they looked out the window, maybe about 3 in the morning. They just happened to get up. They went to the bathroom, whatever. They glanced out the window, and there was a golden type of a classic type of a UFO. It was just like hovering by the buildings, and so I believe it. You know what I mean? But what
Right.
this was, like you said, it could have been military. Who knows? But but this individual did see this, and I believe it 100%. You know what? Because they do not lie. They don't stretch things.
Well,
This particular person.
yeah, but you know something, Chuck? I want to give you an example. When I was a kid in Cuba, and I think I mentioned this one time, we were talking about whatever, out in the farm. And I'm talking about, I was really in a rural area, okay? We're out there in the middle of nowhere, and we have those oil lamps, okay? That's the only way to light yourself.
Yeah.
So everybody's sitting around in the living room. Now, when I'm saying everybody, I'm thinking it was my mom. I don't remember exactly who was there, but I remember my mom's sister-in-law and maybe her brother was there. I don't remember. And I decided to go to the kitchen. So I take the one of those lamps, and I'm going to go now in between the kitchen and the dining room. They had those Western swinging doors, like the ones you see in the movies, the Clint Eastwood stuff. They walk in the bar.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The car,
sure.
they have one door on top of the other,
Yeah.
and they had it. So when I look to the right, I look at the door, and then all of a sudden a hand grabs the bottom door, and the hand was like, I just saw like kind of like those mail order ads where you see the spooky fingers, whatever. Okay, I saw the fingers, top and bottom. And when I'm saying top and bottom, it's the right and left hand. Grab the bottom door, both with both hands. They pulled it out a little and put it back in, and then disappeared. So I go towards the door and I open it to see who the heck it was.
Wow.
And guess what? There
Huh.
was nobody. So when I came running to the living room, and I told my sister, my mom's sister-in-law, I had just seen the hands, and it scared the heck out of her because apparently it had happened to her children. Many people have seen the hands. Now, I know in my mind I saw that, okay? And I don't
Right.
remember anybody telling me about the hands before because nobody did. That particular night I saw the hands. Now, here's the thing about this, and this is why I'm bringing this up. One time, I had I started buying several haunted house mystery banks from the 1960s. And I remember putting one in mint condition. In my mind, I saw this in mint condition and I put it away. So I go on eBay and I sell the darn thing thinking it's in mint condition. And lo and behold, when I open it up a couple of years later, whatever, the thing was missing half the roof. I'm like, how in the world did in my mind, I think it wasn't. So now here's my question. Did I really see those hands? In my mind, I can swear I did. But then again, I was maybe 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to be 100% that I did?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So we could think we see something that's really not what we are seeing, even though we are certain, because many a times it's happened to me where I'm like, another example. One time I found two, I don't know, two signatures I thought might have been original Houdinis. I called Dave Harborside. He comes over to my house, and man, we spent the entire day. He drove all the way from Connecticut just to see if they were real. I couldn't find them. 10 months later, they showed up in a totally different place.
Is that crazy?
Than from where I thought I had put it. So that's what I'm saying.
That's called losing your mind from old age.
It is, but not when
that's called Alzheimer's.
5 years old.
Yeah.
But the point is that's what I'm saying, that a lot of times we could see things and we could swear we saw it, and maybe it's not exactly what we saw. You know what I mean?
Sure, it's always a possibility.
And
Absolutely.
that would answer the question why you see because I gotta tell you something. I don't want to really mention too much names because a person might actually listen to this podcast or one thing I'm going to say to you, there is a person that I know, a person who is very well respected, who doesn't drink, doesn't do anything wrong, and they own a big business. And this person swears that President Biden is a clone.
Oh my goodness.
That and listen to me. And she swears, I mean, I shouldn't say she or he because I don't want to say what it is. They swear that Trump is still in power and that Washington is in Texas.
Wow.
They're telling me this. They're telling me this. That's 100% true. So,
we used to have people out there
that
think that the Articles of Confederation are still the law. There's no constitution, so everyone's going to believe their own.
Yeah, right.
There was a guy.
Weird thoughts.
Yeah, but Joe, did you remember the guy a few years ago they found, and he's some Japanese guy? He thought we were still at war. They found him in some mountain. Do you remember? This is a true story.
Yeah, they found him in.
Yeah, I think I do remember.
Yeah, like early 70s or something. He still thought World War II was going on.
That's right. They found him. I forget where. Which makes me remember that movie with the guy, the frozen caveman.
Oh, that was cool. I remember that.
that was, and he gets brought up to today's day. I mean, that was a pretty good movie. Yeah. I love movies like that. One of my favorites is The Final Countdown. where the World War II ship, or the ship goes back into World War II. You remember that one?
Yep, I remember that.
Those are awesome films. But Joe, one quick question. In all your years, what is your final conclusion concerning flying saucers? Like,
I've always said in doing the investigations that it kind of reinforced it, is that there's no blanket answer, no blanket conclusion. People want to say UFOs are, you'll get, depending on somebody's worldview, if they have a Christian worldview, they'll say they're nothing, they're all demons. Everything's, demons are the devil. If you have somebody that's, has more of a political or military background, they'll say they're from other countries. Some people will say they're interdimensional. Some will say that it's mass hysteria. Others will say they're from other planets. I think it's all of the above. There's no, it's almost like, how would you, like, say if you were to go to another planet, just yourself, and they said, describe the people on your Earth. There is no blanket statement, because everyone's so different. So I kind of think you can't do that with these sightings. I think it's all of the above, and I don't think we'll ever know the exact answer of what some of them will be, but I think that people should keep an open mind and not try to give a blanket answer for, like, say, like the ones that the Navy's releasing. I've heard so many people say they're Russian, they're Chinese. You hear priests and bishops come on saying that they're demons, it's the end of the world. You hear other people saying that there are alien saviors from other planets coming to bring us technology. Those are blanket statements for you. You have to keep an open mind and think critically, and think with some, you got to use some common sense, basically what it comes down to.
Here's a good example, Joe. You see everything what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. A good example. When we were growing up, and Chuck has to remember this, because I think me and Chuck come from a very good, similar background. There was the hollow earth theory.
Yeah,
the thing we didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
I read that in 1968. The thing we couldn't go to the moon.
Right.
We never went. The other one was the hollow earth, where the aliens came from the center of the earth. And then there was that other theory that the earth was flat. Now, of all the stupid theories, the flat earth one, that's got to be the top notch. The funny thing is the amount of people that are
believe it. I know.
I mean,
you know where the flat earth theory came from?
I know.
The guy,
Columbus, right? No.
Well, the guy that started it, that Mark Sargent, he was a failed marketing manager, or marketing. He was something in with marketing, and he basically used the kind of flat earth, model and all that and everything to kind of make a lot of money off of it.
And he did.
And he made millions off of it. And you could easily find videos on YouTube that debunk like everything that they're saying, but there's so many people that their cognitive dissonance does not allow them to think otherwise. And this guy's making so much money off of them. He's doing conferences, he's got products out and all that, and that's all it is. Well, it's a money maker.
Just think about this. You have right now school systems in California that are trying to take out math out of the curriculum for kids, because it says if you tell a kid that the problem is wrong, you're being discriminatory.
Right.
I mean, honestly, the crackpots that are bringing up all this stuff.
Yeah, really.
Some people are doing it because they want to gain popularity actually, or what's the word?
Notoriety.
Notoriety with it.
Yep.
Then you get the people that start these things that are buying multi-million-dollar homes with all the money that people have given them. And the other thing that you got to laugh about all this stuff going on, that this is a good example, is the people that are putting up these rules and regulations don't realize that their own kids are going to be affected, or their great-grandkids.
That's right.
It is, from being stupid now. So it's the same thing when you have when talking about, getting back to like the UFOs and all that stuff and all these theories. Now, let's be honest. If we have a space station in space right now that's photographing the Earth, that you can go on Google Maps and you can literally see what the Earth, how can you say the Earth is flat? And even better, we have, if you go to Google Earth and you look up the moon, you can actually see the moon landing sites in photographs that are enlarged. You can see the actual moon landing sites.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I was listening to, or no, I was reading an article, and it had a there was somebody that he was a former CIA something. I can't remember, but anyway, that's not important. What he said was that the government has satellites in space that if you drop a penny, it could zoom in on it and read the year of the
That's
penny.
correct. That's correct. Wow. That's what I said earlier.
That's amazing, but they can't get a clear photo of some object flying in the sea. It looks like Eddie was out there with his Super 8, and they're like, film it, Eddie.
Yeah, always grainy.
Super 8? Why would it have to be? Why can't it be Chuck or Todd? Oh my God! Listen, I'll tell you what, though. Here's the whole deal. They have, and I know it's a fact because I read this many years ago. I read this in probably 2003, where there was a satellite that they were saying, because of the privacy of humans and all this stuff, that can read a postage stamp from space, like a penny. So you mean to say that everything will get a blurry shots and this and that, And let me say another thing, with all the theories out there that we didn't go to the moon. A lot of people failed to realize we went 6 times to the moon, not just once. We went 6 times. By over 15 or 20 people went up there. And not only that, that means to say that each time they went to the moon, they faked it before thousands of people in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Now, it all over. Come on, it was up to 1970 something. Now, they say, well, how come we haven't been able to go to the moon back since then? Because it's easy. It costs millions of dollars. The rockets were one-time use. They didn't want to spend that much money for something that, what did they discover in the moon? One, the dust, it's like grinded steel.
Right.
That thing even went through their suits. The dust was so horrible, they kept breaking in their lunar vehicles. They actually had to fix one thing with duct tape. And it was like, the moon itself, the dust in the moon is horrible. It was all over the place. It was all over the instruments, all this stuff. So then there's really nothing there that would be, I think, that great for any government to really spend a lot of money on, because there's not really that many resources. And they found out after they went there 6 times, and they scrapped the 7th time because I think that they started running out of money.
Well, here's my take on the moon landing, and I do believe we went to the moon in 69, like they said. However, I don't believe all the the theatrics were real, like them talking to the president and all the photos and all that. I think a lot of that stuff could have been staged, because they were trying to up Russia, Vietnam was going on. They were trying to get the public pumped up for something positive. I do believe we went to the moon, but I don't think the theatrics were.
Now, but remember, Joe.
But I do believe that we still go to the moon and have maybe a secret space program on the moon. And the reason why NASA doesn't go to the moon anymore is because you have the secret space program going there. So what does NASA need to go? They could concentrate on something else. Now, I have nothing to back that up. That's just kind of like,
that's your theory, sure.
Yeah, my theory, of after studying this stuff, and I coming to my conclusion.
Wait a second, Joe. You mean to say in all your time in MUFON you don't have any Men in Black connections?
Not yet.
Is that what you're saying? Well, here's one thing I'm going to tell you. If anybody has a powerful enough telescope, I'm sure they can zoom in and see a lot of even the moon surface. Honestly, we don't see the black, the dark side of the moon. We can't, because it obviously turns around with the Earth at the same time, and you're not going to happen. But the point is, remember, as far as 1974, or I think 76, we still went to the moon. What you're saying, yeah, can there be theatrics and but there is a famous guy who is a movie producer from Hollywood. I forgot his name. You can look him up. I'm sure that if you look him up, you'll find who he is. That he has been in the movie industry for like 60 years. And he was explaining how it would be impossible for us to be able to fake anything that was not real back then. Now, the reason he said that is because we have today technology where we can basically create everything. In fact, one of the craziest thing, if you take any actor or female or male and you put up, say for example, you look up on Google nude photos of that person is not only in movies, they're doing everything, and that actor has never been nude at all. It's just, that's how much technology is today. But
Right.
back in the day, a good example is when you had one of those Hasselblad cameras or you had any type of Kodak camera, you can do double exposures where you can get, and that's how they created in the 1930s those fake ghost images. But
Right.
it was very hard to create a fictional type of image, let's say. Like literally they would have to put a setting. We didn't have the technology back then to
Hmm.
do the trick photography. And me and Chuck growing up in the era, I mean, I remember in Cuba, for Pete's sakes, my mom had a camera. I said to her, how come we didn't take more pictures? And she goes, because there were no film. But it
Hmm.
was one of those cameras that you would put in your chest and look down into, and the top would pop up and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
looked upside down, one of those. And you know what's so funny about that? That technology was there, and I took photography in college, so I could tell you this much: it was very hard to do double exposures. It's not the way we think. So I mean, come on, we got thousands of people. I understand with Russia and stuff. And here's another thing about flying saucer being from China. China can't get even a rocket off the ground right now without exploding in space. Imagine, how the heck are they going to have advanced technology? Now, did the Germans play around with flying saucers? Sure, we know that as a fact they did. And who knows how much they succeeded. I mean, let's be honest, who took over all the German scientists? America did.
That's right.
Who did all the Japanese scientists? America did. So yeah, that they're trying to. This is my take on this thing. That they're trying. I don't think they're coming from other worlds. But I do know as a fact that what they're probably trying to do. This is what I think it might. Like Joe, I don't have a way to back it up, but I believe that all this is just that they're trying to take our eyes off certain things to accomplish other things. And because what a coincidence! All of a sudden, the
Yeah.
United States is saying, "Oh, we have UFOs. We have footage of UFOs," and they all look like Joe was out there with his Super 8 camera again. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
I've never seen a clear picture of a flying saucer. And let me tell you guys, and Joe, this is a fact because you were in MUFON. I have over 50, 60 books on flying saucers. I mean, even though I don't quite I'm not the greatest believer in them, but I love the subject and I'm always on top of it. I'm always watching flying saucer films. I'm watching any type of documentary out there. It's just me. It's just what I love.
Oh, it's
And
very
again,
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
then again, I always tell my daughter and my kids, remember one thing. When I get older, stuff, just remember, I'm the guy that sold monsters for a living.
That's it.
But Joe, I mean, we should start a House of the Unusual investigative department and to move on, and you could be the principal investigator here, buddy.
Yeah, I think we have enough stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But I
How,
tell you what, if anybody's interested, I can't remember off the top of my head the spacewalk video, but it's an early one from the '60s. It might be the Alesky Leonov spacewalk, or I can't remember if it's the first American spacewalk, Ed White's. But there's one of them where he's out on space, and then you see the helmet turn towards the camera as he moves, but the body stays in position. And that was the original video from the spacewalk, supposedly.
Hmm.
But if you go back and you research that, the the spacesuit that they wore at the time, the helmet was latched on to the
Oh, that's right. I remember reading about
suit.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so their head could move inside the helmet, but the helmet was stationary.
stationary. Yep.
Yeah, that was
I
always interesting. Like I said, I think that we
I
get fed
read
a lot
something
of
about that.
theatrics.
Yeah,
To the,
Joe, I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I read about that, but they debunk it too on how that I forget. But on YouTube, there's two videos by professionals that they explain how that happened.
well, if it's on YouTube, it's got to be real.
It's got to be real.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The-
But I
the-
mean, like I said, there's so much out there, but I think we get fed a lot of bull sometimes, and we're not really privy to what goes on behind the scenes. And I don't think there will be a time where we ever will. That's just kind of my cynical thinking, I guess.
No, I agree. I don't know what the heck to believe. I mean, I'm getting so many different, people's opinions, and there's stories that that conflict each other. I don't know what the heck.
well, this is something you guys got to realize. We're living now in a more modern world than ever before.
Than ever. That's right.
Than ever, and yet in this modern world, we know less than we did in the 70s, where we accepted a standard.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, you're right.
That is crazy.
Yeah, because it's like, for one thing that you learn, you learn 20 other things or 100 other things that you don't know if they're true, they're false, mostly probably false. But I like to always ask questions, and
Absolutely
keep asking questions, like, this whole thing with the pandemic and the vaccines and all that. Everyone calls me a conspiracy theorist for it, but like, no, I'm asking questions, and if the questions can't be answered, I want to know why, and I want to keep asking questions. But
Absolutely.
it's like anymore, if you ask questions, then you're a conspiracy theorist, or you're this or that, and you're like, no, I want answers. I like to ask questions. Same thing with UFOs, is that I keep asking questions, and I want to keep asking questions, and I think that's the way that we come to conclusions, or some type of, I guess, informed opinions on stuff, is you keep searching for knowledge, and you keep, asking questions, which I'm sure, like Chuck, when you started off in magic, you asked questions, and if you didn't know something, you tried to learn it, and you kept asking questions.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
same with anything else out there.
Yeah, and the worst thing is true, Joe, what you're saying, that we're always going to want some type of answer.
Right.
And if we don't get the answer, like a good example, I'm looking for the darn 7-foot robot plants.
Oh, here we go.
I'm sure I know.
We're gonna start.
Like.
We're gonna start a drinking game with everyone out there. We're gonna start it now. Here's the rules. If you're listening to the podcast, every time Eddie mentions the 7-foot robot plans, take a shot.
Oh yeah. Hey, how about a pub crawl? Every time he mentions it, crawl to another pub.
Yeah, really.
The whole thing is like, you know what? I could know what they look like. I won't mention the thing, but who cares? Like, I still wanna.
Yeah, you're still out there questioning, and
well, that's a healthy thing, you know what? And I certainly wish you luck with that, because there's certain things I've been trying to find myself, and I think it's our human nature, to try, to try and dig and find things. So I think that's a good thing.
And you know what I wish I could find right now is a little bit more time, because we are at the bottom of the podcast. You like that little transition?
That was good. That was good.
So we got about 2 minutes left here, so we're gonna wrap it up. Chuck, what's about 30 seconds? What's your final thoughts on our conversation tonight?
Hey, I think it was a great conversation. Sorry I disappeared for about 4 minutes there, but I came back, and thanks again for having me, and I look forward to coming on sometime in the near future.
Absolutely. Eddie, on to you.
Very closely is this. Not only have we decided that we're in a different generation where we know less, but now also we're going to be selling nothing. So the House of the Unusual is going to start doing some NFTs, which means people will be buying nothing for something. Okay?
And you'll like it too.
And I will like it, okay?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks you guys for joining us once again, and everybody out there who's listening. Thanks for dropping by. Remember to leave us a comment and a like on your favorite podcast platform. Head over to YouTube at House of the Unusual. Subscribe to our channel, where Eddie's always putting up some great videos. like our videos, leave a comment, and also head over to our flagship website, houseoftheunusual.com, where there is tons of cool stuff there. We got a forum going on, a blog section, a lot of different stuff. Eddie just recently revamped the website, so it's very user friendly and it looks fantastic. So check us out on there and join us every Wednesday for a new podcast. And if you want to be a guest or you want to hear something different, drop us a line on the forums on the webpage, and we'll get a hold of you. So I guess that's it for tonight, guys. So Chuck,
All
Eddie,
right. God bless everybody.
goodbye
God
and
bless.
good night.
Okay, good night.